Hi there. So I've been working for nearly a month now as a fractional CMO, Chief Marketing Officer for this Notion consulting agency called Optemization. And Optimization's founder, Tem, very nicely asked me to make a video for LinkedIn or any post talking about my experience so far. And he told me to be authentic and as authentic as I want to be. So I will, and I really sincerely hope that Tem's not going to regret giving me that instruction and that I don't say too much. But I'll be honest, I'll be fully transparent with you, and this is exactly what I'm thinking and what working here has been like so far. All right, so optimization. You might not have heard of it. A lot of people haven't, actually. That's why I'm here. We need to market it. They do consulting for Notion, which is a pretty cool software that you can use for anything from individual note taking to very big enterprise like wikis and documentation management and project management. My agency runs on Notion actually. At Kalyna Marketing, we use Notion for basically everything. That's where we have our drafts for content. That's where we have our strategy deliverables. It's where we submit things for clients. It's where we keep track of our own tasks. And that's where we're building out some wikis and actual processes now that we're going to scale the agency. So Notion's pretty cool. You can get a lot done. Unfortunately, because you can do so many things with Notion, it's also very hard to define what somebody does with it, especially when you're helping companies do things with Notion, right? So optimization as a Notion consultancy suffers from the same problems as Notion itself. How do you market and position something that can do kind of anything, right? And as you see here, their website is a little vague, right? It's Notion consultancy. Okay, that's cool. So you do something for Notion. It's for high growth companies to adopt and optimize Notion for work. But it doesn't tell you anything else then. Like, there's nothing more than that. If you look at their services, right? Unlock Notion's fullest potential. Okay, team productivity. Okay, I guess this is not for individuals. And you have workspace implementation and streamlining workflows. Okay, Notion training, and skills and knowledge to make the most out of a Notion workspace and data migration. What this tells us so far is that this agency will help us do something in Notion, something in the Notion workspace with data, train us to maybe use the software better, figure out the features, and become more productive somehow. But I still don't really see it. I don't know why I would need to hire a consultant as opposed to just go and learn Notion on my own and, maybe talk to Notion directly. Like, is Notion's documentation good enough? Like, what gap is this really filling and what is this doing, right? And should I trust them? And as you see, if you scroll down the site, like the problem doesn't really go away, right? What the clients are saying. So cool, there are some pretty happy clients. They spend time to understand our needs and problems, creative scalable solutions, secret superpower, help our teams work smarter, not harder. Notion wizards. Okay, so I get that these people are very good at Notion, but I don't know what they do, right? You can say this about most B2B services, that they improve productivity, that they help you work better, that they help you work smarter, not harder. What is it about optimization? What is it about Notion that actually does that, right? How is it better to improve my productivity by hiring optimization as opposed to, I don't know, cutting down their coffee breaks or increasing coffee breaks or giving them better coffee so they're all more hyper? That increases productivity, supposedly. But we're talking about Notion workspaces. Why? Then, if you look at the blog, you still see this lack of focus, right? There's just kind of all kinds of topics here about Notion. Okay, Notion updates, very specific to the software, Notion Formula 2.0 update, new feature, future of Notion as a software, update with some integrations. And, Roxana and Natalie are very talented people. I've been working with them for nearly a month now, and they are fantastic. But they don't seem to be applying their skills in a direction that would actually help Notion consultants like Optemization sell their services, right? And then you have this other kind of almost totally different category of services, right? Or content, which is about engineering teams or team productivity, best practices for managing teams, right? So you have these two buckets of content. One is Notion and Notion features, and the other is team productivity. And the two aren't exactly married, and it's not obvious. As a big audience research person, I'm also wondering, who's this for? Who's looking at this? Because these seem like different audiences. I could imagine very different people looking for something about a Notion update versus optimizing team productivity, and how many of them could actually benefit optimization and getting customers, right? And when you go to their services page, it doesn't get much better, except suddenly we see these logos. These are pretty big companies, aren't they? Discord, Blank Street, Copy AI. I've heard of them. Why did they hire these people? I'm curious, I'm interested, but I don't know if this is for me. Do I need to be a certain size tech company? Is this only for enterprise? Is this for startups? Is it tech or not tech? Blank Street is not tech. High growth companies. What's a high growth company? Is this for me? I don't know. And the lack of focus continues, except it does get a little bit better with their pitch deck, which was one of the first things I pointed out when I was, giving them a proposal. They have quite a track record of social proof, which gets your attention pretty quickly, right? 100 plus projects shipped, 80 plus happy clients. Clearly, there's something that they're solving. There is a problem, there's a demand. The market says that optimization services are valuable, but yet they can't figure out how to showcase that in their marketing and in their public promotional materials. Then we have this, which is, again, look at how insane this is. Look at the kinds of companies they've worked with. This is awesome. You have Bain Capital Ventures, you have Blank Street, you have Cash App, you have Chime, you have Copy AI, you have Discord, you have Jasper, you have New York University. I went there. What the heck? You have a bunch of other like VCs and startups. This is so cool, right? So there's a need that they're solving. I can see that. This makes me want to trust them. This makes me want to ask questions, but I don't even fully know what kinds of questions I would ask. I would assume that a lot of people looking at that homepage or that services page probably click away because of confusion. They don't know if it's for them. They don't really know what problems optimization could solve for them other than, I guess we use Notion or something. And they start defining it a bit more when they talk about their method in the pitch deck, right? Workspace development. Design principles for an effective digital workspace. This to me sounds like operations. It sounds like operations, knowledge management, change planning, right? Building out systems for larger teams. This feels like a more enterprisey or larger startup kind of offering, which matches a lot of their client portfolio. And if you see here, right, custom information organization, access management, onboarding and support, for increasing productivity, minimizing resource waste, and boosting employee experience. This seems clear as day, except we don't know why Notion, right? So we are running into this dichotomy, right? Of is it Notion or is it like productivity and operations management? And how do you marry both? Because Optemization is a company that's very much Notion and that has a very strong relationship to Notion, but their value offering is not Notion specific, really, right? Rebuilding the workspace, dispersed information and fraction communication. You see here the value proposition. They help teams communicate better. They help them locate information. I can see now how managing information and where information is organized for a team would actually help boost productivity, right? Boosting productivity is now a lot less nebulous. You can't fix that information's dispersed with better coffee at the office. And here's the thing, when we look at Optimization's analytics, we see that this lack of focus is actually hurting their marketing, right? Because this looks pretty good. This is 28 days for small agency, and yet we have quite a bit of traffic, right? We have 1,400 sessions. We have half of the people are coming from organic search. That's awesome, right? We get hired for SEO. Our SEO clients would love to see something like this. Something's off, right? Isn't it? It seems like, well, email's very low, organic video's low, social referral could increase all of that, but something's not adding up. And if we look further at their GA, we start seeing why. Because where are these people going? They're going, mostly, to this list of resources that doesn't actually match the service offering. They're going to these video thumbnail tools, wiki. They're learning about this tool that creates YouTube thumbnails, Thumbs Up TV. They basically help you see how your YouTube how your video thumbnail would look on YouTube with YouTube's interface. And then there's a Notion color guide with like the kinds of colors that are in Notion's UI. And these aren't exactly the questions that somebody interested in big startup or enterprise change management for Notion would be asking, right? And that not that many people are even going on the services page. Out of what, 1,000, we only have 137. Even homepage, 80, right? About clients, it dropped so much and it's dispersed across a bunch of these blog posts, most of which don't have much to do with what Optimization's offering, right? So this traffic is not that useful. It's not going to convert because the people going here are not the target audience. They're just random people interested in Notion or YouTube thumbnails, right? And if we look at our engagement, we see that these are not the right people. 21 seconds average engagement time. People click, they might scroll for a second, maybe see a color code or something, and click away. That's it. They're there for a quick answer. That's not a sustainable marketing flywheel. That's not a sustainable marketing strategy at all. And if we look at the search traffic, remember, nearly 50% of all traffic was coming from search. And we see the keywords that they're ranking for. We see the problem. Thumbs up TV, thumbs up TV, thumbs up TV, Notion colors. It's the same two things that I pointed out earlier that have nothing to do with the services that Optimization provides. So this is not the right traffic. What do we do, right? And what does this mean? To test this, I set up Clarity, by the way. And here, let's filter for US and Canada, which is the main customer base. Let's say their session duration is more than 1 minute, so they were actually interested in the website and they clicked around. There was some activity, so it's not like a dead session. And if we look, we already see the problem. None of these are service pages. None of these are about pages. Nothing here is about the company. All of these people are coming from places like Google, Reddit, and they're just staying on a Notion color guide or a Notion landing page guide. They're just people interested in Notion. They might be individuals, they might be students, they might be small business owners. They're not necessarily people interested in what Optimization has to offer. And I had to scroll pretty far to see like a single session that actually went to the services page here at the bottom. And if we look at popular pages that we actually have heat maps for, right? We have some heat maps for the homepage, which is good. Then it's the Notion color guide, and the services is only 28. We don't even have that much data about how people receive the services page because not that many of them are clicking on it. And then if we look, people are not scrolling that far, right? On the homepage, most people don't even scroll to the case studies, so don't even see who Optimization has worked with and don't get that awesome social proof. And what are people interested in? People are clicking on the services. That's the most widely clicked button on the entire homepage. Except when they get to the services, they click away pretty quickly. And they don't scroll that far either because there's not that much information. So we need a better definition of what the services look like. And we need to know what we're actually doing here and who is this for, and make sure that traffic is actually from people that are either potential customers who could convert or other parties and other audience members that could benefit the business in one way or another, right? So they could be organizations to partner with. They could be people who could refer a customer, right? Or people who already reach an audience of people who could convert. But they still have to be relevant. It should be like 1 or 2 degrees of separation from somebody who could convert at the end of the day. And getting people interested in Notion colors, it's not going to do it. So here's a framework that I really like to use that I'm thinking about as I'm trying to figure out a marketing plan, right? I spent most of the past month doing research, thinking through things, testing my ideas a little bit, getting to know the team and figuring out, like, am I right in defining the problem here? Are my hunches correct? And I don't want to just suggest, let's do these tactics without a reason. I want us to have something that's sustainable and that builds on itself, where everything becomes a flywheel, right? Where every marketing investment makes future marketing investments for Optimization easier, right? We want a solid foundation and then a solid like first floor to then build on top of, rather than having a Jenga tower that's just going to collapse once it gets too tall. And this is how I like to think about it. It's my framework, So the order of these is important, right? You start at the bottom. You start with the foundation, which is the purpose. What is the big scale objective? And what do we actually want the marketing investment to accomplish in the business? Like, why are we doing marketing? For Optimization, the purpose is, well, we actually want to get more customers. Optimization, despite their very impressive client portfolio, has been struggling to get new leads and to close sales, right? Their salesperson, Skylar, is phenomenal, but he doesn't have enough sales calls to get on. So we need marketing to funnel people to sales and to get Optimization's name out there. All right, then what do we do with that? Next layer is strategy. How can we connect the objective to a hypothesis rooted in the real world and real world context? So these are things like, who's the audience? Who's out there? What are they doing? What are they looking for? What does the market look like? Who are the competitors? What kind of products are we offering or services, right? So in this case, we have Notion, right? Is the software that we're using. So it should be something tied to that. We also have the high price point. Optimization services are not cheap. It's many thousands of dollars, right? So that means we need people who can afford that and people who have the kinds of problems that optimization solves. So bigger teams, a lot more pages to manage, a lot more permissions. You want bigger companies for the most part, or small companies that operate at high degree of complexity. And we know that there are other Notion consultants out there, and there's also other software that kind of competes with it, and agencies that offer that. Things like ClickUp. There's things like, I don't know, I'm spacing on it right now. But there's a Airtable, right? There's other software that's very similar. So from that, we want to figure out, okay, our strategy is we're going to reach, for example, larger startups or enterprises in the tech segment that already use Notion but have issues with scaling their workspace further or have a lot of inefficiencies. And our marketing will target those people. That's the initial, framework for strategy. Then next, we have the tactics. Okay, what are the specific actionable steps that we need to take to actually implement our strategy and reach our purpose? Remember, we're trying to get more leads into the sales pipeline for optimization. And for that, we're going to be reaching people from larger startups and enterprises in tech that have issues related to their Notion workspaces and knowledge management. So we could decide to reach them via paid ads. We could do SEO. We could do going to a bunch of events and talking to people. We could do posting on social media and hoping to attract people that way, right? But these are all tactics. These are all actionable campaigns. And then lastly, how do we know that this is working? How do we know that whatever tactics we're implementing actually pan out with the strategy and that the strategy is the right one and it connects to our purpose? We have to define a test. So for testing, how will we measure our results and see that our strategy and tactics actually work? Are the marketing activities that we're performing actually helping us reach our purpose of getting more people into the sales pipeline and making sure that they're the right qualified people who could need optimization services? So here are some screenshots from some Slack conversations that we've been having with the team and things that I've said. I do believe that, especially early on when you're dealing with resource constraints and when you're trying to build that initial marketing engine, what you need is things that are scalable long-term and could serve as a good foundation, but also you need to test. You want to test out positioning and pitching. You don't want to spend hundreds of hours on a beautiful slide deck and then realize that the messaging doesn't work. Skylar is the salesperson, so I was thinking he doesn't need to have an exact script. He should explore. He should actually test out that, does this positioning work? How are these people actually describing the problems on their own? And Skylar can start recording the questions he's getting, what patterns there are, and then we can build marketing based on that. And we can actually improve the marketing. The more conversations sales has, the better the marketing can get, right? Pitch, sales materials, marketing copy, they don't have to be something we guess. We can get data. We can get that data from the external world using tools like Sparktora, which I'm about to show in a second, or actual data from sales calls and from people we have worked with, data within the company. We have these data points. So we can build any assumption on actual quantifiable information. And then we decided, looking at the past customers and who has been the most successful and who seemed to have the biggest need for the kinds of services that optimization offers, our target audience is people in operations. So we're not just targeting, startups of the larger size or enterprises. The specific people within those startups that we're targeting are either chief operations officers or chief operating officers or directors of operations. So people who are higher up, who are doing management and who deal with operations, who care about things like whether people can find things correctly, whether everybody's efficient, where the information is, whether there is proper documentation built out and actual process management for the whole company. All right, so remember how I told you that there are kind of two buckets here? There's Notion, the software, on one hand, because Optemization only does consulting for Notion, but on the other hand, there's this whole issue of operations and the actual needs, right, and the actual pain points within organizations and the target audience. So which should we target, right? We could do marketing based mostly on Notion and have Notion be the primary differentiator, or should we focus on the pain points and actually focus on that operations persona and have Notion be secondary? I don't want to just guess, so I started looking at the data, right? This is SparkToro. This is one of our favorite audience research tools. We use it for most of our marketing work. It's awesome. You should try it out. This is beta for their new V2. And looking up people who search for Notion on the web, what do we see? Well, we see a bunch of websites here, and then I'm interested in these search keywords. Free Notion templates, Notion's templates, marketing Notion, best free Notion templates, Notion add-ons. Do we really think that most of the people searching for these keywords are operations executives and directors at tech startups of the larger size or tech enterprises? Sure, they all use Notion, but is that actually the more important qualifier for this audience? I'm starting to think not, but let's keep digging, right? We see, what are these websites? We have Product Hunt, which is great and it's techy, but a lot of people go on it. There's Skillshare, which is mostly meant for individuals. Then there's ClickUp, which is a competing software. Interesting, that's so high up. And then we have a bunch of these websites. And let me show you what these websites look like, because that's important. So here's one of them. Get organized with Notion your entire life and make this the most productive year yet. We have Second Brain for you. Finance Tracker, your finances. These are individuals. These are individuals who use Notion, sure, but productivity and Notion management here is individual for one person or maybe a small group of people. It's not very relevant to big organizational change management that Optemization does. Okay, let's keep going. Thomas Frank, that's another one, another big Notion creator. Complete beginner's guide, so people just starting out Notion, a lot of things about features, and then again, productivity system, goal tracking projects. It's individual or for very small teams. No juggling multiple apps to run your life, your projects. It's not your team, it's not your company, it's not your organization, it's you, the individual, or maybe a small group of people. Again, it's not relevant. Site 3, Notion everything. Again, for you and your organization, okay, well, that's good. But again, we look at these, small business. That's not what Optemization does. They don't deal with smaller businesses. You have Notion Habit Tracker, Finance Tracker. Most of these people are individuals, right? They're Notion users. Here's another one, Red Gregory. Again, Notion features. So a lot of people looking at Notion are individuals or on the smaller side. They're not even on the highest paid plans that have a lot of the finicky features that Optemization helps with. So targeting these people might not be relevant. And if we dig into SparkToro's data more, we see the same thing again. These are just tech companies. This doesn't help us finesse our marketing message or figure out what content to make. If we look at the search keywords, right, it's Notion Second Brain, Notion Budget, Notion Templates Aesthetic. These are literally just any people out there using Notion. They're not helpful to us. We could get thousands of hits from these people, and it wouldn't change our current situation where a lot of people looking at the website are never going to become customers or even lead us to customers, right? Because they have a totally different use case for the software. Notion is used by so many kinds of people that just targeting people based on the software isn't niching down in the way that you think. And it's not that useful. It's not that practical. It doesn't help us figure out a strategy or the right tactics or even test, right? Because, okay, sure, we might get great engagement, but if that great engagement is with people interested in totally different things, what does that do? All right. I tried a more specific term, right? Notion project management. You'd think that more people here would be enterprises. And, it's true, right? We have people in operations, right? We have people interested in project management, leadership. That's good. That seems more correct. And then we look at search keywords, though. Even though a lot of these people seem to be the right audience, we can't really base a lot of our marketing on them because, again, they're searching for the same people as most Notion users, right? Free Notion templates free, Notion project plan. These might be smaller businesses or solo business owners, who knows, right? Like the demographics seem a little better, but And looking at these most mentioned skills, I'm starting to wonder, what if we let go of Notion? right? This audience is basically who we're looking for, but not quite. It's still too big of a net. And what if we just gave up on the Notion net, right? What if we looked at some of these skills, right? What if we looked at change management, project planning, strategic planning, project management? These are pain points potentially, or topics that CEOs or directors of operations are interested in. What if we looked at that instead, right? And let's see. So here we have some snippets from actual sales calls that Optemization has had recently. And the first two are from somebody that they described as an ideal client who actually has now converted. And then the other two are recent calls that I also thought were interesting. Let's see how these people describe the problems that they're coming to Optemization for, right? It's not like we'll try Notion. They're already all in on Notion, but they want to figure out how to zoom out. This is something important that affects the whole company, want to get it right. They don't need somebody to teach them about Notion, but they want it to be beautifully thought out and have thoughtful structure. Maybe templates, different types of pages, company handbook, and do performance reviews. Want to figure out how to run for the whole organization. Here's the second snippet from the same sales call, and then we have some quotes from Tim, who is the founder of Optemization. Right? I want to be thoughtful enough that people know what to go and do in Notion, right? What it means to go into Google Docs versus Notion versus Jira. The entire tech stack has to have a purpose. Company policy, discover stuff, give enough structure for people to actually build things on their own, for teams to build things on their own. And then Tim says change management, which we just saw in SparkToro. The problems here are weirdly Notion agnostic. It's just, this is a software we have for project management and documentation management, but these are organizational problems with teams. Where do we go? What do we do? How do we make sure people know what software to use for what, right? It's not very close to people talking about Notion features, right? Here's another sales call. This is Skylar responding to somebody and saying, in a perfect world, having a streamlined system, have a digital workspace that's easy to use and understand, growing team, growing number of projects, and being able to scale without, the tech debt, the inefficiencies, scaling with them. And then here's another person talking to them. You've nailed it, right? One thing I tried to do is make a landing page. I tried to link all of our separate pages, tried to make this a central location. It's very basic, but we're a remote team and everybody has their own places where they put things. It's inefficient. People are repeating things. They're not communicating well. How do we minimize, the amount of time where we're trying to figure out, well, where do I find the answer to this question? Where is this? What do I do? It's all change management. It's all operations. It's all organizational. So Optemization sits at this crossroads, right? Between problems that are just any organization filled with people is going to have them, and how to implement them in Notion specifically. So my hypothesis is that the marketing needs to be focused on the problems first and the software second. Yes, we're going to specify Notion, but think about it. If you have a workspace, right, or if you have a lot of information to manage for your company and you want to figure out how to do that better, you're first going to think, okay, who knows how to organize information? Who knows how to actually help us, centralize this and deal with demands of separate teams and different permission levels and hierarchies and all of that. And then you're going to start going to the technical requirements, like, do they use Notion, which we already use? Notion is a prerequisite for hiring Optemization in many cases, but it's not the problem. And that's not where the journey starts. That's not where the customer or the potential customer starts their search. They start with the problems. They start figuring out, oh God, why is this so inefficient? How do we make this better? And only then do they think Notion. So Notion is secondary. And, well, I tried to test a hypothesis in terms of looking at some other agencies that I know of that I know are doing very well. So one of them is ZenPilot. And ZenPilot is an agency that does a very similar thing to Optemization. They help with project management for other agencies, but they use ClickUp, which, as we saw, is one of Notion's competitors. How do they market it? Do they talk about ClickUp first or the problems first? Well, look for yourself. So if we look at ZenPilot, right, like how much do they mention ClickUp? We're not seeing it much, right? It's last project management implementation they'll ever need, chaotic project management, average capacity improvement, gross margin growth, right? Client lifetime value increase. You have implemented a new project management system, but it's not providing the value. You have lack of visibility, chaotic projects, frustrated team. All of these pain points are software agnostic, right? But they're specific to agencies and specific to operational improvements. Here's the process, right? We're going to do this. We're going to help you figure out how to build a structure. And then they say the tool ClickUp or Teamwork, right? Saving you months of work, but the tool is secondary. Will help you build dashboards to track profitability and team performance, right? And then even when they're talking about ClickUp, right? This is them marketing a ClickUp resource. They say agency issues, and here's how you might struggle with ClickUp. So how do features of the software cause operational problems? But the operational problems are first and foremost, they're kept at the forefront at all times, right? And if you look at their blog, even that, everything here about ClickUp or Teamwork is for agencies, for agency problems, standard operating procedures, right? It's still operational. It's grounded in operational questions. Okay, so here's another agency that I know of that does really well. They're actually one of our clients, Belkins. They don't teach anybody about a specific software, but I wanted to see if there are any patterns, right? Another successful B2B tech agency. They do sales. And so again, they're focused on the kinds of problems that their services solve, right? ROI with lead acquisition, right? We will help you do this, right? Here are quantifiable results, elevate lead generation, boost ROI. And again, it's about like what they do in terms of results, social proof, right? Process, who are the people, right? It's very personal. And then here's why you should choose us. They mention their toolkit, but they don't focus on it. So it seems like Optemization's problem is not necessarily marketing for agencies that coach on a specific software. It's just a larger agency doing services for B2B tech, right? Because Belkins' strategy is something that could actually be applied to optimization. But we wouldn't have known that if we started with Notion and stuck with Notion. So now let's see, if we let go of the Notion thing, right, and we start just running data and looking for marketing ideas based on, these organizational concerns that we've heard. Change management. Change management was a term we've seen in the data. Change management was also a term we've heard on the sales calls. People talk about it. They resonate with it. The actual leads that bought optimization services care about change management. So I ran a search in Sparkdora, right, for a change management organization. And look at this. We have so many ideas for content to do, so many pain points, so many things to discuss, right? Our organizational development used to hire new executives. Okay, what about how do you onboard a new executive with Notion? That could be a cool content idea for the right target audience. Effective compensation for teams. Maybe how could you calculate that out in Notion? Important decisions to be made while designing an organization. What about important decisions to be made while designing an organizational workflow in Notion, right? All of these can be turned very easily to Notion-specific things, or even showing how do you solve this problem, and then the screenshots showcase Notion, right? We are already getting ideas that are real pain points of the real target audience that we care about, right? Okay, there are all of these frameworks about change management. We could do a bunch of things around change management, right? How do you implement this framework in Notion? What does this mean? Which one works better? Why do we recommend that versus this? What is this operational design that Optimization's delivery team focuses on so much, right? Change management process, change management approach. How do you do that in Notion? Organizational, informational systems, right? All of these are relevant. Every single one of these is an idea. Then even if we look at the websites that show up here, we could use these, right? We could use these for co-marketing. We could use these for linking to things, right? We could use this for social proof or getting more ideas. What fixes a digital adoption platform and analytics for employees, right? We have management study guides for management students. Maybe business schools teach something that might be useful to tell people with Notion, right? SaaS user guiding, help you get better at SaaS growth and user onboarding. That is a problem Optimization solves, right? Project managers, right? Like there's all of this stuff here now. This is how people describe themselves. So we can now run more searches and figure out, maybe run these searches on LinkedIn, right? Who says project management? Who says change management, right? Search for people, change management, see who comes up. We could even find leads directly or make content with these keywords on social, and they will probably come to us, right? This is exactly what we wanted. This is data on the right people that is actionable, that can lead us to, with our strategy, to a pretty great set of tactics and some pretty great tests, right? We have all of these things. Then I ended up looking at organizational design based on the other data, by the way. And again, way more sites, right? Way more ideas, way more things that we could work with. And we know all of this will be relevant to the right target audience, right? Going back to our model, if we go back to our model, let's think about it this way. Our purpose, we want to get more COOs and directors of operations from high growth startups on the larger side or enterprises in tech on sales calls, right, with optimization strategy. We're going to see what COOs and people who do operations, right, at that level are interested in and where they go online. And we're going to target those topics with specific Notion implementations and talking about Notion features that could cause problems, but focus on those pain points that are common to all operations executives and directors. Tactics. We might put that on LinkedIn, right? We might select some of those websites from Fractional and try to do a co-marketing campaign, right? And then testing, let's do a bunch of things around change management for a month and see how that performs and look at our analytics and see if the right people are showing up. Let's see if they're going to the sales pipeline, right? You see how this works, right? And it's the right foundation because Optimization's core service offering is not going to change. They're still going to help people with operations management, which means that anything they do now will stay, even if Notion's features change, right? Even if Notion blows up one day, right? And then Optimization has to figure out how to coach people to switch to a different software a few years down the road. All of this work is still going to be usable because it's still going to be the same people looking at them. They're still going to be, showing up and experts in operations and operational design and information architecture, not in things like Notion templates or Notion color guides. So, that's what I'm working on, and I hope this was interesting. I hope you liked my blabbering, and if you have any ideas for how we can help optimization more, I'd love to hear it. If you want to co-market with us also, let me know. If you want the kind of help optimization offers, please message me. I will send you to the amazing sales team. But thank you for listening, and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.